Welcome to UK Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Today, my guest is Bettina, Carey. On this episode, we're going to be discovering how to recognize and break through our ceiling of limitation so that we can create big results. As a successful entrepreneur for almost 30 years now, Bettina is a coach, speaker, and chief empowerment officer at We Empower You, which is a global online business network. We'll dig into a bit more about that shortly. Her mission is to change the globe one business at a time. And that sounds really good. So I'm intrigued to find out more. Welcome to the show, Bettina, Carey.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited.
It's really good to have the opportunity to chat with you, actually. That's one of the benefits of hosting a podcast. We get to chat with all these cool people that know what they're talking about, know what they want to share with other people to help them on their journey as well. So that's really good. Great that you've got the time, you've made the time to chat with us today. Maybe so people can get to know a little bit about Bettina. Share something of your journey that's brought you 30 years, long time. Obviously, you started very young, but there's a lot of years that you've lived, a lot of experiences you've had. But maybe just share something that helps us to understand where you've come from and how you help people now.
Well, I'll share 2 points of view. And one of them was nearly 30 years ago when I founded my business. And that's when I slipped and fell into business. Literally, I was walking into a restaurant. I was a nurse at the time. I was in the home care business, and I slipped right onto my keister, and I had literally a pain in the neck and a pain in the butt. And I couldn't move. I couldn't walk around, but I'm not that kind of person to sit around. And so I had found my massage therapist who I knew from my doctor's office, and she had an office to rent. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to start a business, and I'm going to rent this office space. And that's what really started me on the business side of things. However, that said, the second story plays a bigger role. And that is when I was in high school, I met a boy who became my boyfriend. And we started dating, and one thing led to another. And soon thereafter, he started to hit me. And I had never experienced this from a dating situation. So I felt that I had no way out. I subsequently married this man. On the way to Washington from Colorado, he assaulted me and caused the premature birth of my child and subsequent death of her. Her name is Laura Jean, just so you know. And those 2 stories really is set the stage for the path that I'm at right now. One is because I was in a disempowered victim status and needed to find my way out and kick things to the curb, self-limiting beliefs in particular. And the other was just a sheer accident because I was a nurse at the time. I literally started a healthcare marketing company, and the rest is now her story.
Wow. Just in those few moments, there's a lots of ups and downs in that. To start with, I thought, boy meets girl, this is going to be good. And then it kind of took a turn I wasn't expecting. But yeah, I'm sure you weren't either. But you've come through all that, which is good. And to some extent, I think one of the key things that we can all learn just in that, we haven't really started to dig in yet, but just it's how we respond to stuff, isn't it? Like, you're not the victim, even though you've gone through some tough stuff that you shouldn't have had to go through, but you've reframed it, you've responded in a positive way of reaching out, healing yourself, overcoming limiting beliefs, certain things, but also reaching out to help other people. And I think in some ways that's where a lot of the healing comes, isn't it? As we reach out to help other people, we find a lot more healing in the process. So well done for not quitting and for starting the businesses the way you have. We could dig into that. There's a lot more in that, but thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable. It's a tough thing, which, it's unfortunate you went through. But as I say, you've come out the other side, and you can empathize with a lot of people that are sadly stuck in similar situations as well. So before all that, there was no kind of influence from entrepreneurs within the family or anything that sort of, when I grow up, I'm going to have my own business. It was literally just the result of the fall sort of in the restaurant, and then that tragic.
It's interesting. I did not have entrepreneurs in my family, but I certainly had the chutzpah that comes with owning your own business. You kind of have to. And what's interesting is that I had been a nurse in the traditional sense, hospital-based nursing, and I'd found my way into home care. And the director of the home care company said, "You belong in marketing." And I looked at her and I said, "What is marketing?" And she explained it to me. And I said, "Well, I went to school to get a degree in nursing. I have no idea what marketing is." And she said, "Well, I'm going to put you in marketing part-time, and I'm going to put you in nursing part-time, and then you'll learn what marketing is." And so I would be doing office presentations and exhibits at conferences for doctors and such. And I learned a little bit from, what she was talking about, but I didn't know anything about chambers. I didn't know anything about the word networking. I didn't know really much about anything, to tell you the truth, when I started my company. So subsequently, it took me about a year to really get the first sales. And once I did, though, I really took off. And before I knew it, I was doing PR. I was doing lots of exhibits and conferences. And I even flew to the UK to do some exporting presentations there as well. So it's like I put one foot in front of the other and just kind of followed the path of least resistance, in a sense.
Yeah. And you've had quite a few various roles, haven't you, as well? And as you say, your breadth and depth of expertise is very impressive, because also publishing, communications as well, you're involved with as well. And I guess in some ways you're drawing from all those experiences now in how you're helping your clients as well, how you're doing the summit as well, which we'll talk on a little bit later as well. So it's really good. You're utilizing and sort of galvanizing all the experiences, and you found a way to kind of express that in a way that helps others as well. Because we were chatting just before we started recording, and be good to dig into here a little bit about sort of some of the challenges that you've had. One of those being that kind of finding your giftings, your strengths, and then how can I express that in a way that I can actually earn money as well, so that I can pay the bills and then, scale up and help other people as well. I'm sure that's not a 5-minute discussion, but what was some of the maybe the steps that helped you discover where you feel, your giftings were, that you could then start develop them and express them?
Well, the gift of connectedness was probably in me in the very beginning. And that's probably what this woman was actually finding inside of me. And I became the president of a small medical organization where I became, involved with the membership recruitment. And one thing led to another. And 2 years later, I had tripled the membership. And even that didn't register on me as being unique or different. I just thought it was just a little bit of hard work, and I was doing the work. And so I just made it happen. Well, then a few years would go by and I'd be invited to a board or a seat of a sponsorship co-chair or some role like that. And the numbers would go up. I'd take a group of 750 to 1,000, and people would say, "Wow, you're such a connector. You're such a maven." And these words, again, were new to me. And I was, still kind of wondering why people were talking about this. And then ultimately I took a test. It's called Strength Finders 2.0. And it broke down the 5 key areas that I have strengths in. And interestingly enough, the number one was connectedness. And that is when I finally realized that I was here, put on earth, to connect others, to connect the dots for people in all kinds of ways. And if we're talking business, we're talking about joint venture partnerships, we're talking about collaborations, we're talking about doing things bigger than I could do all by myself. And what one thing led to another again, and I found myself living into this dream of connecting others. But in 2011, what I discovered was that I had not cracked the code on how to make a living at it. So I found my passion and my purpose and my vision and my mission, but I had not found the revenue stream for it. And I ran head on into a glass ceiling. And the glass ceiling for me turned out to be self-imposed limitations, not societal. And those self-imposed limitations had to do with confidence. They had to do with belief, facing fear. And once I broke through those, I was able to land into a little bit of a side path, which was to start a advertising agency. Once I started the advertising agency, had a regular income recurring, I found my way back to what I'm gifted at, what I'm here to do, and that's to bring people together. And I personally believe that when everyone on the planet has a business, and I mean including children, we can change the globe one business at a time. And it does not require a product nor a service. It requires that we bring people together in community to collaborate. So that is the long and the short of it. So I had my rise as I was rising, and then I dipped and I had to give it all up in 2011. And then in 2019, I started rising again. And now 2 years into COVID, I'm like so far on the summit that the air is getting a little thin.
That's good. Yeah, well done. A lot of it's perseverance as well, isn't it? But coupled with that, yes, based on what you've said, and it'd be really good to kind of dig into a little bit more, like how do you help people discover the ceilings? Because we've all got them, haven't we? I mean, let's be honest. For everybody listening, you've got a ceiling whether you know it or not. We all have. What we do about it then determines what happens next. But yeah, so go on.
In my case, I live into specific mantras that I repeat to myself daily, right? And so one of them is, you only get in life what you have courage to ask for more. So each and every day, as I say this mantra in my head, depending on the conversation, depending on the circumstance where I'm at, I will ask for more. Say that I was, flying to see my mother in Austin, and I asked at the front desk, can I take an earlier flight and not pay anything extra to do this? Normally it would be like $500 extra. And of course they gave it to me, because I asked, right? Yeah. I do believe that it takes practice though. And sometimes you have to start small, whether that's asking for a table, window side table at a restaurant, or asking for an extra zero at the end of a pitch that you've pitched, a contract that you're trying to close, or what 10% or 20% above an offer for a job opportunity. At the end of the day, if you apply this idea that asking for more is all that it takes to every conversation, you will see that you will get more. And recently, because of COVID, I don't see my partner very often. So I ended up asking for more, and guess what? I get more, contact. So at the end of the day, the more we apply this principle, the more we are able to let go of the things that are limiting us. And one other that I really practice, and that is to ask myself, is what I'm doing getting me the outcomes and the results that I'm looking for? Or am I wrapped up in the processes, like a one-woman show process, and I'm trying to do everything myself? One will lead you to having a busyness if you're all just wrapped up in the processes. And if you're a one-woman show or one-person show, you'll never get to where you're going, because at the end of the day, you hit that glass ceiling and it's right there, lives right over your head, and it has to do with our human capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some, I could go in several different directions on all of that as well, which is really good. I like the fact that you mentioned about the limits that you had were what you imposed and not what society was putting upon you or your business. And you're right, it's a really good habit to develop, actually, asking for more, just taking what would be your natural response or your natural first figure, if it's a bid, or your natural ask for something, pause, and then just add something. I like that. It's a good habit to develop. And it does it. If I'm hearing you right, it's not a greed thing. It's more of a stretching from the current boundaries that you operate in. It's like with everything, isn't it? You can have lots of money and do good with it. You can have lots of money and do bad with it. So it really it's the core of why we operate and how we operate that determines the outcome. But I like it's a really good practice that I'm going to challenge myself to start implementing some of that.
Absolutely.
Well.
Every conversation, when you ask for more that you would have assumed was the only offer on the table, you get more. I mean, I have an example where I quoted somebody, $750 for an hour's worth of work. And they pushed back and they said, but they didn't push back hard. They said, you're worth it. And I'm going to pay you this for these many weeks. And on these weeks, when you do less, I'm going to pay you 500. But, I got all of those extra weeks at the rate I wanted, not at the rate that they would have been willing to pay.
Yeah.
And each and every day when I apply this, more and more income tends to come in. So yeah. I love the journey.
Yeah. And it's a really good principle. Like we could use it. Can't you take it as far as you want to go? Can't you? It's like if you're currently helping someone, a business or an individual outside of a business context, how can I actually help them a bit more? How can I do something extra to help them brighten their day, to help them do whatever it is they do? There's lots of different ways of doing that. I like that. That's really good.
Yes, and you can always give more value to back up your zeros, right? So in this case, I extended myself several times to give them even more than what they had agreed to in terms of hours and what I had agreed to. So at the end of the day, it's just appreciating what your number is. Now, you may need to do some research to find out what your actual value is. You may just just pick a number out of the air and start with that number. Yeah. And, if it's too easy and people are willing to pay it all day long, then maybe you need to raise your rates and, Yeah. So, but at the end of the day, it literally is practicing languaging it so that it becomes very natural and it doesn't sound salesy. And it's just because you understand your self-worth. Really, that's another big component of, self-confidence and making sure you're not a one-woman show, but also at the end of the day, you've got to build that confidence muscle. And the last thing I would say too is that there's this thing that we call false evidence appearing real. That's fear for short, right? Yeah. And at the end of the day, facing our fears and using that extra energy inside of our body to consider it to be more like fuel and excitement, as opposed to making us like scaredy cats, that helps you to take it to the next level as well. And I've shattered a lot of glass ceilings with just getting over some false information about how I might be afraid of something. But in fact, once I crossed over that threshold, I realized there was nothing to be afraid of whatsoever.
Yeah, that's really good. It's like the opposite of fear is faith, isn't it? And faith, however you express it, but in essence, it's a trusting something you can't see or taking action before you see evidence that it's going to pay off. Yeah, that's really good. And a lot of the time, like the stuff we do get afraid of and we can allow to cause us to shrink back, it's all small stuff anyway, really, and a lot of it won't really happen. It's the way I heard it taught this way once, the guy that kind of mentored me through coaching, and it's like once you recognize the presence of fear, it's either a life-threatening scenario that you have to respond, move out of the way or get out of the way or something, but most of the time it's the feeling of this is an opportunity to grow because it's something new, something I've not done before, something slightly uncomfortable because it's not familiar. But if we can frame it from that perspective, we can actually use that, as you say, to be the fuel to inspire us, to move us forward. And it's like we're wired to grow, aren't we? We're wired for new experiences, really. And a lot of the time the ceilings are what, like you say, we put on ourselves that hinder our potential.
Yes.
And that's not
writing a book about the self-imposed limitations, where we're the worst jailer of our own limitations, right? And as opposed to moving through those. And one of the techniques that I use that helps me get over any kind of fear is just to be present tense and present moment thinking, right? So I learned this from Eckhart Tolle, who came through Seattle and a few other states I followed him to. And he's so got this right, because the future does not exist. The past does not exist. And the only moment that exists is this present moment. So unless somebody's standing there with a knife over you or a gun at you, there really isn't anything to be afraid of. We conjure up these feelings because our brain, our amygdala is wired to be searching for danger. And so we have conveyed in our mind that it's you need to be afraid because you're going to go on a stage, for example. One of the biggest fears that people have is public speaking. Well, guess what? It's going to cause your brain to be looking for all the ways that you can embarrass yourself and all the ways that you might fall flat on your face, as opposed to just being present to this moment in time where the future doesn't exist and the past doesn't exist. And I apply this literally, even during this conversation, I'm applying this directly. When I go to sleep, when I wake up, throughout the day, all of these times, I use present moment thinking.
Yeah, that's really it. You're right. It's like, I read a good book the other day. One phrase in it says, "Be where your feet are." And I think that just encapsulates it really well. It's like, yeah, that you can only really be effective if you are where your feet are at the moment.
That's right.
Good to plan ahead. It's good to forecast and all the rest of it. But
yeah,
right there, right now, you're right. This is what we have. The moment that we have, we don't know how long we have really. So it's good to make the most of the moment. So that's really good stuff. This is all good stuff. And you said you're writing a book, aren't you? You're in the process of writing a book to help people kind of realize and break out of some of the ceilings that we can put on ourselves, or maybe other people put on us, or we think other people are putting on us, when actually they're not a lot of the time. So it's good. All good advice for challenging that. I just wanted to dig in a little bit more, just in the time we have left. Tell us a little bit more about the weempoweryourlife.com. So the membership aspect, the membership site aspect to it, unpack that a little bit so we can understand it.
Yes, 25 years ago when I started bringing, in this case, it was primarily women together to empower them, what I discovered along the way was that we all needed websites, right? To start and run and scale a business, you really need a website. And I was searching for those 25 years for a templative website that could launch anyone into business. And I mean anyone, whether they had a product or a service or not. And I ran into the founder and president of Income Activator. Her name is Lee Romanoff in New York. I believe it was in 2017. And it turns out that after a couple of years of watching her do her thing, I realized that she had the answer. And together we have cracked the code on how folks can learn how to stop promoting themselves so much and start promoting others, because when you promote others, you can actually generate wealth and you can generate income that is not dependent on your labor. When you're dependent on your own labor or your own products or services, you basically have to service the business. Then what happens is you tend to have peaks and troughs, because as you're selling, you get clients, then you got to service them, and then you trough down. And what we are all about is helping people, as Lee puts it, to tell people where to go. And when you tell people where to go, you can get rich. The second major component of the We Empower You community is the community, right? So first the platform, then the community. Why go it alone, right? These days especially. We are a community of like-minded people that have come to know, like, and trust each other. And in addition to that, we're all based in authority. So we all have an authority in our field, in our craft, in our practice. And so together we can share resources of time, attention, and advice and strategies to one another. And that is one of the things that people rave about the most. The third component is, though, that we believe that you can take your message to the masses and turn your business into $1 million business. And I have been able to scale this brand new baby into a multiple figure business in just 2 years' time. And I know that by next year or the year thereafter, it will be $1 million business. And I know that because the numbers are tracking like straight up.
Yeah.
And so this is, the combination of community, the platform, as well as getting on major stages is important. And so we produce a major stage every quarter. That's the summit. We have weekly meetings. That's another stage. We have podcasts. We have 6 podcasts. And we also have a radio list of radio stations around the United States that have upwards of 100,000 or more listeners. And so we're helping folks to create spotlight videos, create their own TV shows, and get their message to the masses. That's the main components.
Wow. There's so much in that. Lots of different avenues that if people are focused more on maybe one aspect, they can benefit from it. If they're, really good at connecting, but maybe they don't have a product or service, like you say, there's ways that they can join the community, help and promote and earn money as well. If you're also looking for a site, it makes sense to at least have a look at the templates to start with and what's out there that you guys offer. So that's really good. So tell us a little bit about the summit. I know literally as we record this, you've got one in a couple of days. So for people, when they catch the episode, that will have passed. But as you say, they're quarterly. So there'll be another one fairly soon. But
Yes.
Just give us a few details about that. What are we missing in a couple of days' time?
Well, what I like to say is that many talented coaches are simply finding it difficult to get to help the people that they most could be helping, and that people need our help more than ever before. And so what we've created is a stage where folks who need help can come to, and then we put together the coaches that are very, very talented. And, they're authors, coaches, speakers, mentors, and thought leaders, just like yourself. And I'm excited to be welcoming back to the stage some of our members, as well as our repeat guests and new speakers. Always a total of 36 or more speak in a 12-hour day. It goes from 8:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. We do this every single quarter. And what I like to say it's that this philosophy that we practice is based in an African philosophy. When you want to go fast, go alone. When you want to go far, go together. And it is in the spirit of togetherness that we are going to go very far with all of us at this summit.
Yeah, that sounds really good. It is all about making the world a better place for other people as well, isn't it? It really is. Nothing wrong with building a good business in the process, but if it just stops at us, I think we've missed an opportunity. We've missed the point somewhere. That's my personal perspective. I know you share that as well, and Yorko does, which is why he kind of set the podcast up in the first place.
The pandemic has set us up for us to be global, and the virtual reality is a plus as well. And so we have folks from the Netherlands and Germany and Thailand and Korea and the UK and Canada and Africa, the continent, and so many places as a result.
That's really good. Yeah, it makes the world a smaller place, doesn't it, in the right sort of way?
It does.
That's really good. Thank you for everything that you shared with us. Do we know yet a date on the book, or is that still work in progress?
It's still a forthcoming book. My goal is to pop it out this year.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, that's good. Maybe once it's out, you can come back and dig in. We can dig in a bit more with some
I'd love to.
gold that's in that. I'm sure that'd be really good. So, yeah, but thank you for the time you shared with us today, and all your insights as well. I think there's lots of ways people can take what you shared and apply it to their life. We always encourage listeners to think about, don't just listen, but think about the things that have been said. Is there a ceiling that you're aware of, or maybe since you've been listening to this conversation, you think, actually, I do limit myself. Maybe I'm not asking for as much as what I could, or maybe I'm not reaching out in quite the way that I could. What could you actually do? Change your language, as Bettina said, challenge yourself, become accountable to somebody else. Lots of different ways you can take it. I'm going to stretch myself just with how I view things after this conversation and see where I can kind of increase certain things. Always good It's all about growing, isn't it? All about stretching ourselves, finding new things, being innovative, being creative. Yeah, that's what's exciting, I think. If we just do the same thing, we're going to get the same results. And whilst that may be good, it doesn't really help us grow much. So it's always good to put into action something new as well when we hear good stuff. And this episode is packed with good stuff. I'm slightly biased, but I understand it and I learned from it as well. And I know that if you take it on board, you will also benefit from it. Thank you again, Bettina, for sharing your time and expertise. As I said, for everybody that wants to find out more, the weempoweryourlife.com is the site, isn't it? There'll be a link below. Find out about the summit, find out about all that's available and whether you want to join the community and how you can contribute and make it even better, and learn from others in the process as well. It's been really good. Look forward to you coming back again. As and when in due course the book comes out, that'll all be really good. We'll discuss that further. For everybody listening, make sure you do something with what we've chatted about today. We believe in you. We believe in your potential. Don't let it hit a ceiling and stop there, but take action. And we will catch you on the next episode. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for listening to UKAI Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.ukaibusinessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18 or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.